Now a very topical question that I keep getting every day is what's happening? What exactly happened? So it's a combination of a few things. Firstly, of course, Elon Musk uh, after talking up Dogecoin and Bitcoin and getting Tesla to buy $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, suddenly had a not so stellar live interview, and then everything started dropping. And then next he dropped a bomb and issued a statement saying that Tesla is going to stop buying Bitcoin because it's environmentally unfriendly, because they were under a lot of pressure from the green and the environmental groups. So that happened. So that caused the first stumbling. And secondly, the major news was that China was announced for the third or the fourth or the fifth time already that it's banning cryptocurrencies again. And this time it was going to ban prohibit the financial institutions from dealing with anyone who's dealing with cryptocurrencies. So that caused a major tailspin, and then the cryptocurrencies started dropping. So, well, I'm sure a lot of you are talking about it or wondering what's happening, what's going to happen. But I have told a few of my clients and business associates who are asking about what's happening with the market trends and all. And to me, this is just a healthy correction. It was totally expected. I've been writing about this for the last year. And the normal market trend, and I'm sure a lot of the speakers here who have been in this space for the last few years can tell you the same. Market trend is always like this. The peak is usually just before Christmas. That's before everybody breaks off for Christmas and the winter holidays. And then it starts picking up again in January and February. And then it would dip again when Chinese New Year comes along, because all the Chinese miners and all the speculators, China is a huge population, of course, of investors. At one point, they were representing about 80 to 90% of the entire market volume a few years ago. So once they break for the 15 days of the Lunar New Year, they will sell off everything, right, to de-risk. So that causes the first major downspin in terms of the market. And then the next event that happens is around March, end of March, end of April. This year it was pushed another month, and initially last year I was predicting another dip in April, but this year I predicted that it will happen in May. What's the reason? Because in Japan and the US, it's tax season. So basically, people have to do their taxes and pay their taxes, and that's what happened in these 2 months, typically in every calendar year. And then, of course, this year, because of COVID, so the American tax season was deferred by 1 month, and then it got pushed to May. So my initial expectation was that the dip would happen in May. Now, as to how big a dip, we don't know. Right? I can only tell you the market trends. And then usually after the dip, after tax season, it will start slowly rising, right up until the summer holidays comes around for the Western Hemisphere. And then again, everybody packs up and goes off on vacations. This year is going to be different because a lot of the world is under lockdown. So we don't really know how the cycles are going to play out. And usually in the summer season, there will be a lull. And then towards the end of summer, when everybody comes back, then everybody starts buying into crypto again. And generally, there will be a slow, steady march up from end of summer all the way up to the winter holidays again. So generally, from after fall and early winter up to the point of Christmas would be the high point again. So generally, this trend always happens every year. Whatever is the news, something will happen. But the general cycle is this, right? So the specific incident doesn't really matter because every year something else happens, but generally it shapes up this way. And of course, the cryptocurrency market is still quite filled with a lot of whales, and increasingly the institutional players are coming into the space. And another word of comfort that I have for the investors or the business associates that I have who are convinced in getting into crypto is, look, if all the funds are buying in at a certain level, if the funds are declaring that their average value of Bitcoin is like 20,000 or 30,000 or 40,000 or even 50,000, there's no way they're going to let it drop down to zero, because they will just raise more money and push it back up to where they, at the very least, the level that they bought in at, because they cannot show an NAV loss, a net asset value loss. So at the very least, with the institutional plays right now that we've seen in 2021, the floor is going to be much higher than before. That's basically my long discussion about the market trends. I'm sure the other speakers have their own views as well, or would like to add to this, and I'm sure a lot of them will be presenting about this as well.
Thank you so much for sharing, Malcolm. So now it's actually 10:02. I think I have seen a lot of people coming in. Thank you guys for joining. So my name is Amanda. It's with great pleasure to be your MC for today. So on behalf of Technicolor and the incubator of DeFi NFTs for KingSwap and BitAngels, we'd like to extend a warm welcome to you guys to actually come for our May Singapore edition virtual event. So today's theme, as you guys can see, is actually why NFTs are worth million. So it's really very great for Malcolm to actually share a bit more of why Bitcoin was a bit of dropping, and then I think now everyone have a bit of understanding for this. So just to go through with you guys a bit of our agenda. So today we have 4 speakers who are very experienced in the blockchain and crypto space. So we have Daniel Dobowski, we have our esteemed speakers who is Mr. Kevin Pang, Mr. Felix Mago, and also Mr. Carl White. So after all of their speeches, there's going to be a Q&A at the end, and also going to be a networking session. So in any case, if you guys have any questions, you all can see on this Zoom link, there is a tab over there. You can click over there and write your questions over there. And at the end of it, we will actually answer back to you guys. So without ado, let's get this started. So we can have our starters is actually Mr. Malcolm Tan, who was speaking just now. So just a bit of introduction for Mr. Malcolm. He is actually, he have done regular reviews and consult with multiple governments, and he's a frequent speakers and thought leaders for DLT, ICO, and crypto regulations and law. So I think with this, he actually helped to write 2 books as well. So how to ICO, and also his latest book, which is called DeFi, the latest financial phenomenon. So the floor back to Malcolm as well.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Welcome everyone to the latest edition of the BitAngels Singapore webinar. As you know, those of you who have been following us the last few months, we are trying to do this every month. And now, of course, it's very topical. Today's event was sold out super fast. People were wondering, they just received an email and they can't even get a ticket anymore. So the world is really heating up. The industry is extremely at fever pitch right now. There were so many long positions in the derivatives markets and the futures markets that I think the exchanges took the opportunity to wipe out all the futures. I'm sorry for all of you who have leveraged positions in the exchanges, but look, the centralized exchanges will do this to you, right? So the moment you see that the boat is tilted all the way one way, get out of it really fast, because something will happen and wipe you out. So unfortunately, those of you who have been playing on the 100x, 150x leverage platforms, you know what I mean, right? Be very careful. Once the market is tilted to one side, then something will happen. So that's really what we have seen. It doesn't really matter about the micro news item. It could be Elon Musk, it could be Chinese government, it could be whichever head honcho at whichever bank says it's a scam again. Something will happen, and then the whales will say, oh, time to play, right? And then they will start playing in the market. So I'm sure the other speakers today in our esteemed lineup will follow on this. But yes, today the topic that we really want to focus on is on NFTs, non-fungible tokens. NFTs, I'm sure most people would not even have heard about them until this year, when NBA Top Shots came up with their super sold out or very well performing offering. NBA Top Shots was actually invested in by a lot of the top NBA players. They, even in their beta stage, they managed to get a market valuation of over 300 million very, very quickly. And their business model seems pretty good. And in fact, it's very low on crypto. Many people who don't even own crypto can easily buy into the ecosystem. So they have really dumbed it down and made it appealing to the masses. And alongside NBA Top Shots, of course, you have seen a lot of the music artists, the the visual arts artists coming up and creating their works. A lot of them have managed to achieve many multiples. A lot of them have sold their portfolios at very nice numbers. A lot of music labels, art houses, auction houses have gotten in the scene. Our speakers later on will be expounding a bit on these trends, but we are very happy to be right in the midst of it at Technicorum Group as well. We have already supported one NFT auction successfully, and we are upcoming. We have a few more music labels as art, and we are also going to be working with some auction houses. We've also been working with some traditional mass media as well. So later, Daniel, who's our group CEO, will be speaking more about these things that are happening. So NFTs are really right at the starting point, right? Cryptocurrencies were actually pretty hot already 4 years ago, but NFTs just started this year, and it has a long way to go. And in fact, I keep getting the question: is this the bubble? The NFT bubble over already? And I say no. There's no way that it's over, because the power of NFTs is that it can digitize anything, right? Basically, any kind of asset can be digitized, and this will make the power of the internet even more magnified. And with NFTs being able to represent anything from a title deed of a house to a share certificate to a piece of music to a piece of art, and fractional ownership of these things, to me, it's going to be a multiple trillion-dollar market. At the very least, I think it's going to be in the tens or hundreds of trillions of dollars in the NFT space, and we are only right at the cusp of it. We are not even in the high double digits of billions. So we have a long way to go in the NFT market, and our esteemed lineup will be speaking more about these. So you can, I guess I've spoken enough. Daniel, he's our group CEO. He used to lead a listed company. He was one of the pioneers and thought leaders in the crowdfunding space. He ran a listed company group, and then after he got bored running them, he decided to join our Technicorum group. And today he's already a thought leader in Scandinavia and in Europe. Has already appeared on multiple media channels, already speaking about this topic, and he will share a bit more about how NFTs are going to grow in this space. Then we have Kyle White, who is VC. He has been in this space for many years as well, and he'll be sharing about his views. Felix, I've known him since all the crypto events and parties started. I think we have pictures together, numerous cities around the world, all the after parties at every event. I can't even count how many times I've seen him at different parts of the world. So he is extremely well versed in this space. He's a payments expert. He's a marketing guy, and he's the voice of Dash at many events. So he will share his views. I'm also following his LinkedIn profile all the time. He always has newsworthy things to share on LinkedIn. And Kevin is a strong associations player in the Singapore market. He is well known in Singapore in the Blockchain Association and in other fintech associations in Singapore. He is the founder of Legatus, and he's also very well versed in the licensing regulatory compliance play in Singapore. And he has a lot of the very large enterprises actually talking to him to leverage his skill set and his connections in Singapore as well.
This is so exciting to see so many participants in such a great panel. And Amanda, thank you for being such a rock star as MC. So, huge applause for Amanda. She's a rock star. So thank you for the good introduction. I'm very happy because for me, this is extra special right now because, of course, as Amanda Malcolm introduced me, I have a background in the art field. I'm going to show you a slide. If it's okay, I'm going to share my screen right now. Can you see my screen here? Yeah, perfect. So as you see, my background is I'm actually an art major and an art collector, and I'm an extreme oddball in the financial world. When an art major who wants to change the world of finance, it doesn't really work, but it does work because in working with art, my biggest job was to communicate, just take something complex and explain it to art critics, the masses, the audience, children, professors, whoever, right? So you become very good at explaining complex stuff. I don't know if I'm such a good at explaining NFTs, but I'm going to give you a good shot. So my background is basically, I worked a lot in art curating. I did 3 exhibitions, which was considered to be the top 10 in the world, 3 years in a row, which is huge. It is tens of thousands of exhibitions each year. I'm also a professor at the Stockholm University. I've been there for the last 10 years. I'm giving lectures a few times a year, not on a full-time basis, but a few times a year to future product management students in the art field. I also did a major exhibition at the Royal Academy of Art about Duchamp. Duchamp is the most conceptual artist I know about, early 1900s. Basically now, 100 years later, he was right. And then, as Malcolm and Amanda also said, I've been working in fintech quite a lot. I founded and ran Fundami for 10 years, took it all the way from idea to the stock market. We listed it, and then so we helped over 650 companies to raise funding successfully. And now I'm nerding myself down into Technicorum. As you see, I have a huge blue heart now. In the fintech scene, it was green, and now it's blue. I really love what we're doing. But the major point here is, of course, I just changed slide. Can you see the next slide, Amanda? Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so my major point is that something huge is happening, and why? As you know, everybody I think who's listening right now understands NFTs. NFTs is basically a digital token on something which could be physical or could be digital. And yet at the end of the day, it's a contract, right? It's a contract saying that I now own something digital. And that in itself is what's awesome here, because up until now, up until a few years back, NFTs, anything a creative person did, a musician, a artist, a filmmaker, they had to go through the established gatekeepers, the music industry, the film industry, the producers and such. So you have a few on the top, they make extremely heavy money. And then you have, of course, millions of creatives who are not making any money. Just as a fun fact, I can just show you the search term for NFTs versus crypto, similar timelines. On NFT, it's only 2020, but you can see that there's not so much discussion about NFTs up until early 2020. They've been around for a few years, right, as a technology tool, but nobody really understood what we can do with them. And what happened at a certain point in time is that 2020 came with Corona, right? So the entire creative industry got hit massively by Corona, and a lot of the creatives couldn't do what they were used to do, neither musicians, artists, or filmmakers. So everybody had to rethink. And usually that's what happens in this industry. I'm going to go a bit deeper into it, but what I want to show you once again is that all the numbers are staggering, but also they're very, very, very fresh numbers. You guys listening to this presentation, us working with this, you know, we are at the beginning of the beginning of the beginning, right? So it's still very, very early days. What I love a lot, and why I love that the creative industry took a good stand, is that because they can visualize, right? They can take something complex, put some visual aspect on it, then explain to the masses. So suddenly millions of people understood blockchain, or starting to understand blockchain, or getting an interest in that, or they are selling NFTs because somebody takes their hand and through a visual representation explains what we are talking about. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, 2020 hit the creative industry extremely hard. This is an industry who already was struggling. Not every artist is making money. Not even the top artists are making money in certain periods of time. Like if you look at Kanye West, right? He makes a lot of money when he releases something new, but then he lives on royalty and what he has done until then. So even a top artist, irregardless if it's Asian American or European, they struggle quite a lot because they are never as good as their last hit or their last failure, right? So let's say Kanye West drops a bad album, he's going to be dead, right? So the creatives do what they do best. They get creative. And a lot of people in the crypto industry, including myself, we're trying to explain what's happening right now. And I'm trying to explain it almost like, this is internet 1996. The technology was there. The engineers understood it. The connoisseurs knew it. The nerds understood it, right? But the masses didn't understand it, internet at 96. Just imagine yourselves when you were in 1996. The technology was there, but internet was a fad, right? I still remember the Swedish Minister of Infrastructure, including internet, right? She said, internet is just a fad. She said that in 1998, which is extremely interesting. I still remember when I laughed first time somebody wanted me to use their webpage or email. And if you look at crypto as 1996, the interesting thing is that everything is still wide open, but the problem is that we are not there yet mentality-wise, idea-wise. We cannot yet lift our eyes, which is fine. It has to be like that. So that's why I'm very, very happy that NFTs and artists are leading the way for us, because now suddenly millions of people get access to a world which is fairly hard to enter into. For me, myself, when I started to talk to Malcolm, Malcolm said the first thing, look, everything else that you're discussing right now is boring. NFTs is the future. And I didn't understand what he was talking about. So I had to Google quite a lot. And then a few weeks after I started the Technicorum, suddenly NFTs exploded. We did the Dream FNG project, which opened up a bunch of doors. So we're just about to launch some other NFTs, one NFT for a major filmmaker, one NFT for a major painter, and one NFT for a music artist. But actually next week, I'm going to write an article about NFTs for a major financial newspaper. And we're going to actually NFT the article about NFTs. So hopefully one of you guys can bid, so I'm not standing there embarrassed and nobody wants to bid on my NFT, but I'm extremely excited about this. And this is my point, right? Everything you can imagine can be an NFT. Everything you can think about it, that you can package, you can create a blockchain contract on saying that now I now own this because I bought it. Obviously, you still have to have a buyer. There's a lot of NFTs out there and a lot of NFT sites. Not all are getting $68 million bids like that major auction house got early this year. And I'm going to finish my speech about giving you an example. I was working in 2001, roughly, with an artist called Miltos Manetas and Mago, one of the best artists I'd never known. They were extremely successful. So Miltos Manetas, what he did is that he was a very famous painter. He got roughly $40,000, $50,000 for each painting he sold, classical paintings, right? But instead of buying Ferraris or ice cream or penthouses, he took all that money, create a workshop, and put in all the creative kids he could find in the early 2000s, and he created a movement. He paid an advertisement agency, the same that came up with the names of iPhone, iMac, iPod. He paid them $200,000 to give him a list of names for his new art movement, and it became Neen. Neen is also an old Greek word for new. So the Neen movement was basically new artists, creatives creating web pages without the use. This was the first internet art I ever seen. So basically web pages without a purpose, just something moving or a sound or just an interaction between you and user. Nobody understood that. We could not sell them. Nobody was buying those paintings. The Neen movement basically died after 2004. It was basically just staggering, and all the Neen artists was basically hungry. Nobody was paying him, right? In 2020, at the end of December, I saw a Neen artist, and he was on food stamps. Basically, he was on the brink of starvation without governmental help. 2 months later, he says that he sells almost every week an NFT art for $400,000 each, right? And this is, for me, amazing. The movement has been around, the technology is there, and now a lot of people are coming. And especially for the Neen movement, this is huge. Obviously, for us as being savvy in the crypto field, we need to understand three fundamental things. First of all, the technology is there, we get it, it works, it's not super complex. People like us at Technicore, we can definitely advise you if you want to do NFTs or other crypto projects. So just reach out to us. The other part is that we are in the second wave. The second wave is when more and more people start to understand crypto and find day-to-day usage for it. The third wave, which is going to be the awesome one, which is going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? Somewhere down the line. That's when the masses start using crypto as everyday purchase, everyday movement, when everybody can NFT whatever they want. And this is what I'm going to finalize with right now. Everything we see right now in NFTs is a final product. It's an art piece which has become digital and then sold through the blockchain on an NFT marketplace, right? So it's still end products because our minds are still focused on creating an end product, and a finished painting, a finished song, and finished film, right? When I'm talking to my artists, I'm putting into their minds something else. You can package a process. You can NFT an idea. You can NFT a meeting. You can NFT a hook in a song or a reverb, an intro. filmmaker who, let's say, had success 20 years ago, he can NFT parts of that film, like a famous catchphrase or a introduction film, something that suddenly what we are looking at right now, which I'm extremely excited about, is the birth of a new financial vertical. You can have a kid in India making NFTs and sell them for $100. There's maybe nothing for an American, a Singaporean, or Swede, but $100 for a creative kid in India, that's huge, right? That person could not sell art before. I have thousands of artists as friends, and they're not selling art. And now suddenly NFTs open up their mind. They can sell art on a daily basis, right? They can sell multiple pieces. And I'm going to finish with the most interesting part. Mark Cuban went out and said that he put an NFT on a page. Basically, he took an image of himself, put it online, sold it for $100. Not interesting, right? But here comes the catch. He has a 16% royalty on every time that picture is selling. And that picture has now sold at least 10 times. So every time the picture is sold, Mark Cuban will get 16% of the purchase price or selling price, right? So the original artist, if they have the royalty set up, they can make money for the rest of their lives, and not only on end products. And also they bypass the entire gatekeeping system, you know, the film industry or the music industry or the art industry. That for me is mind blowing. You know, when we're going to talk back in 2 years from now, all of you participants in this, you know, people listening and us giving speeches, we will say, remember the spring of 2021 when we're just at the beginning and suddenly we see this explosion. So for me, you know, I'm one of the most convinced people about the future usage of this, because I see that it solves a lot of problems. Obviously, the biggest challenge is going to be to find buyers, because the industry is there. More and more people are coming. More and more people will package ideas or concepts or parts of the processes rather than just end products. Then, of course, the buyers needs to come. We did have a bidder for $68 million for that Sotheby art piece, right? We are getting bids for a lot of pieces of art online, but not everything is selling, which is normal. Not everything on eBay or Amazon is selling either. So it's not enough to just have a product. You also need to create a market, and the market is now being built. So that was it for me. So I just wanted to show you Miltos Monetas when he does his internet paintings. As you see, it's both digital art, but also physical art. So I'm going to finalize just by telling you that we're extremely accessible. For me, we can reach me on, you know, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or just email me. What we do best right now is advising people like you to do good stuff. We are doing our own projects, and, you know, keep your eye on this space, because we're going to launch quite a few interesting things. And then if you want to bid on my NFT next week, the article about NFTs, which is also an NFT, which I think is unique and cool and most likely worldwide first, then you have an opportunity, and, you know, at least $1 it should be worth, right? All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Give a very brief description about that. But I think just now Daniel has actually started a very good conversations about it. He gave a very good primer in terms of what NFTs are, as well as like the history behind it. Very interesting history that I myself not very aware of. So learned something new today. So very quickly, I'm just going to introduce about myself, right? So there are a number of associations I'm actually part of. Besides in Singapore, there are global associations as well. First and foremost, I'm the chairman of SGTech, formerly known as the Singapore IT Federation, a semi-government association belonging to the Media and Communications Agency in Singapore. I run the blockchain committee, and that is also part of the Singapore National Blockchain Master Plan panel as well. I'm the secretary of the Blockchain Association of Singapore, the co-chair of the NFT subcom within the BAS itself. On a global level, I'm actually the board member and director of payments and etc. Of this Global Impact FinTech Forum, which is actually endorsed and supported by the United Nations, IMF, ABD, WEF, as well as World Bank. I'm also the co-lead of the NFT working group. So we are actually championing to have NFT as a working group recognized and actually supported in the United Nations itself, so that globally we get this recognized, and then more effort is actually put towards that. Last but not least, of course, I'm also the entrepreneur in residence with the Korean Government Agency for Startups, so like smart cities, fintech, and also blockchain as well. So that's something I cover. On the commercial front, I run 2 companies, actually a couple more companies, but the 2 main ones. Legatus Global is actually a payment services company that actually deals with settlement of cryptocurrency as a form of network, right? Cross-country remittances as well as payments. I also run another company called Maidsafe. So Maidsafe is probably something I'll describe very quickly in the next slide. Okay, so what is Maidsafe? Maidsafe is actually an ecosystem that consists of 4 different pillars: an aggregation platform, a DeFi, NFT game, right, where the NFTs are actually used in the game, and as well as like an NFT marketplace, right, for artwork and stuff like that. We aim to fuse, combine mainstream of e-commerce, gaming, social media, etc., to the crypto world of NFTs and DeFi in one seamless, unified platform. So to know more, we have a Twitter handle called Maidsafe World. Something interesting that we are doing, which is something that's pretty new, is an NFT charity auction. So this started off because NTUC, which is the National Trade Union Congress in Singapore, they have a care fund to help jobless workers affected by COVID or affected by the various other economic situations in Singapore, and they decided to come up with something called blockchain for good, right? So using blockchain for good to raise funds for this care fund in Singapore. This is jointly organized between NTUC and the Blockchain Association of Singapore, and this is running on the Maidsafe NFT marketplace. The platform is actually working in partnership with Google for using Google AI technology to do state-of-the-art identification of fraudulent and kind of plagiarism of artwork, as well as a couple of stuff that's a bit nifty, right? We also in partnership with Binance, working the partnership with Binance to actually look into payments and stuff like that to support this, and also to support in particular this event. And of course, Temasek Foundation, being that in Singapore, they support charity events and all that. So that's in progress to get the support for this particular charity event. Now, it's going to be launched for this charity event. It's going to be launched on the 9th of August 2021 this year on Singapore National Day, given that there's involvement in government. And in terms of the artwork contributors, we have the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Tan Juan Jin, supporting by giving up some of his artwork to be NFTized, right, to be actually put on the auction, as well as a whole list of like global celebrities. So do catch us on our Twitter, and then we'll get updates on that. Okay, so about NFTs, right? Is this the next gold rush? I think that's a very key question that everyone is asking, and it seems to me that it's actually pointing towards a certain direction that I know this is something to look up for in terms of wealth generation, as well as like where the new wealth is, right? Okay, so it started off definitely some time ago, but I think it get a lot of prominence globally and coming to Singapore's point of view, right? Recently, the media, as in the mainstream media, has been covering it almost every week or almost every other day, right? From the newspapers to the media, as well as like to televisions and then even documentaries has been conducted. Almost I have been seeing people commenting on that as well, and they have actually kind of interviewed artists that have got into this space. And then of course the biggest news I think back months ago was actually the Metagovan, right, actually bid for $69 million on the Beeple art. So I think this has set the market stocking, and the people have been asking about that. And of course you have like funds saying that okay, this year is going to be worth billions, this total market, when ZK International kind of said that that this is going to be worth 1.3 billion. I think that's probably understatement as of today, right? Just like when people said that DeFi is worth this certain amount, and 3 months later it's actually worth 100 times of that, right? So I think NFT is going to be the same thing as well. So that actually created a lot of hype, a lot of like artists going on it as well. So previous artists that are not on the digital space, they are actually getting themselves versed into this area and getting into the space as well, right? Now, besides artwork and all that, there are various other items that are actually on an NFT right now. So one of the interesting one is actually real estate. So there was a first house in Germany that was actually being put on NFT, right? Not sure if it's being sold. It seems to me that I don't see the price anyway, could be sold. But yeah, that was the one that actually generated some interest, but apparently they are not the first, right? So in Australia, in Sydney, there's been some project and they've actually successfully done it where they actually create an NFT, right, for parking lot in Sydney, right? Apparently parking lots are pretty expensive in Sydney, and they actually fractionalize it as an NFT and then got people to actually invest. They understand the local regulations and it's being done. Right now they're doing NFTs on farmlands where people can actually invest in fractionalized NFT plots of land. So that's something that Australia is doing. I'm quite sure in other parts of the world, they're actually looking to do that as well. So NFTs potentially not just work for digital art, they can actually work perfectly for real estate. But of course, going to regulations and all that is another story. So that's also something else to discuss. But besides that, you have obviously music. So, musicians have actually gone on getting their work to be NFT. And then that has actually kind of like, placed them in prominence from people who typically you don't really hear about to, suddenly they are in this space. And then obviously the current celebrities and the musicians, right? They are actually getting the act as well. And even interestingly, someone, as in like that Fast and Furious 7, that particular super sports car, right, has been actually put on NFT, right, for free, and it's actually placed at $100,000, right, so for sale. So increasingly, you'll see some brand names doing that. Like for instance, for myself, for Mass Panda, we are actually in talks with a particular car manufacturer, right? Unfortunately, due to NDA, I can't kind of mention the name, but they're interested to kind of auction off limited editions amount of cars worldwide. That's in discussion. So these are the things that are pretty interesting to to the world in terms of what we can actually put as NFT. But of course, there's always the killjoy, unfortunately, which is the regulations and also the views of the regulators. So the thing is that it is a good sign as well, if you want to think of it this way, right? If it's a market that's only worth a couple of $1 million, right, the regulators wouldn't be interested, right? Because it doesn't pose a threat, because it's just millions. But because it's potentially in billions, which is when the regulators actually take notice of that. It all started off with, definitely FATF actually published, they have a public consultation of the views on both DeFi and also all the what we define as the new virtual assets, right? That was actually published in March. There were various different organizations, including the ones that I am actually with. We have actually produced our own response to that to FATF to say that, hey, this is how we view such assets to be. But yes, they have a view on things like DeFi, the new virtual assets like DeFi, as well as like NFTs. So potentially some of it may look and seem pretty harsh. So which is why we kind of responded to say, hey, shouldn't we that way, and try to kind of rationalize that with FATF. So the response has been sent. So not just us, but globally, I think various association organizations have actually sent the response as well. MAS in Singapore, the regulators actually tighten on the Payment Services Act in terms of enforcement and things like that. So they are pretty watching this space pretty tightly as well. And of course, looking at the US, pretty much they are potentially looking to saying that it could be a securities, or it could be not, right? So if it's a securities, then obviously you have to go to a fully regulated regime, which is pretty hefty. And then if you look at the recent, I think that was the news, I think this morning, or was it yesterday, that Dapper Labs got sued on allegations that, that the art they have on NBA Top Shot moments are actually unregistered securities, right? So these kind of things are will be put in kind of like, get in tandem as well as NFT gains more prominence and people uses it for various other reasons other than artwork. Then I think it comes to a point where, what is the definition of NFT, right? The whole definition of NFT is that it's a non-fungible token, which means it's very much different from your Bitcoin or any other payment tokens. Why? Other payment tokens like Bitcoin can actually use it to, pay for stuff because they are interchangeable, right? They are the same, but NFTs are not. So an artwork that you have, let's say, for instance, of a tree, right, versus the artwork of maybe of a dog, right? Can you ensure that both are actually interchangeable? You can't, right? Different values and at times even perceived moving values that cannot be ascribed to any form of trade. So potentially that is not, the definition of a payment instrument, right? And because of that, under most jurisdictions, especially in Singapore, you can't really define that as a payment token. So NFT potentially, arguably, is not, but the moment you define NFTs where there's an investment value, right? So that's where securities law comes into place to say that, hey, there's an investment value, and because of the transfer of the particular NFT, and it generates a certain wealth generation in terms of value, then potentially that argument it could be under the securities law, right? Which is why, people are saying that potentially it could be securities. So this is not very clear right now, both with FATF, both SEC in the US, as well as any other regulators, including MAS, right? So, but I think in the increasing months ahead, we shall see a bit more clarity on that, especially when property, in terms of property and property titles and all that becomes more prominent. People are trying more to do that on cars, on ownership of that, and even on businesses and stuff like that, right? So I think we should see more clarity in the months ahead. But definitely with the inclusion of not just artwork, because artwork by itself, potentially as an art market already worth billions. Now you have other non-artwork to be included as well. Then I think it's potentially, even going to trillions, right? Because you are looking into other asset classes that are now being put into NFTs. So I think this is a market that's not just moving towards millions, it's beyond that as we look into it. It is no longer a class where, crypto is pretty wide, right? You have your Bitcoin, and then along the way, you have something like DeFi, which no longer, it is directly under the umbrella of the traditional crypto. It's actually got a life of its own. And even for NFT right now, right? Increasingly, it's no longer just defined as, crypto. NFT is not exactly crypto, right? Because it's actually a class by itself. So eventually, it will come to a category by itself. And the treatment of that, both regulations and legality as well, will actually look at it much differently, because it goes into the areas of intellectual property and rights and things like that, and fractionalization of the so-called NFT comes with its own sets of issues as well that needs to be addressed, right? So yeah, this is a space to watch, and I think going forward, only excitement. And I think like what Malcolm and Daniel have just said previously, we are just at the beginning of a wave, right? To me, I feel that it is really not even at the beginning of the wave. It's just an experimental phase that is a concept, but I think everyone is interested. Now, this is where I think lots of ideas are being flourishing, right? I mean, every other day you see about NFT news. Every other day you hear new ideas being generated. And if you notice recently on the mainstream media, last time they like to talk about companies, this fintech, kind of raise $20 million or $10 million, and it used to be a big hoo-ha. But recently, if you kind of notice the mainstream news, right, they are covering a lot on cryptos, obviously the up and down of the markets, but as well as stuff like DeFi, as well as NFTs, right? Increasing coverage versus the traditional financial services or traditional services. So what does it show? There's a lot of interest from definitely the media, right? Because NFT is also definitely very closely tied to media, as well as the institutions are looking into it. The financial institutions, as well as the big, big companies and institutions are looking at that. And of course, with close eyes from the government as well. So a space to watch out for. We are just the party just barely started. In fact, I don't think it actually started. It is more like, the teaser, and I think more action is going to come out soon. Okay, so that's all I have to share today. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me again, Malcolm. We really know each other for a long time, and I guess if you are in crypto, you are around and you kind of know the ecosystem. And one of the good things is it's still so small that if you're around for a while, you know a lot of people. And really depending where you are, obviously you meet people, you're gonna have a drink and you connect. And this is how the business probably is one reason why the business is growing so ridiculously fast. So I'm here today to speak about DeFi. I guess I'm the only speaker who is not talking specifically about NFTs, but you will see it is coming all together. So my name is Felix Mago from Dash. Specifically, I'm the co-founder of Dash Next, because Dash is not only one of the OGs in the space, made in 2014, having the first and longest running DAO in the world. Basically, our whole financial operations is governed by a decentralized autonomous organization. And within this network, I'm the co-founder of an entity called Dash Next, which, to break it down very short, is all about creating partnerships, pushing out the marketing and good news about Dash that we constantly create, and to grow the ecosystem on a business development level. So the good thing, we are a payment currency. So the good thing is, everything is important and payment is everywhere. So we are basically in all industries, and now moving a lot into DeFi, and not only Dash, but also me personally, I have fell into the rabbit hole and have found a great new passion there. So I want to give you a very short and comforting talk, because we are all shocked what happened yesterday. I was sitting at dinner with another friend who's also since 2013 in crypto, and we were like, I mean, it's always very emotional, and one of the most emotional, things that happens in life when markets crash by 50%. But suddenly our telephones were starting to beep, and many of our friends who probably came into the space a bit later, pinged us and said, "Oh, what's happening? Are you okay?" And honestly, if you are in crypto for so long, you kind of expect the unexpected. You are shocked, you are sad, it's a bad feeling, but you know, life goes on. And to put it a little bit in perspective, this is what I want to do today, and give you, you know, a little of a comforting talk. Everything is going to be okay. I mean, obviously, everybody of you know that leverage trading can kill you, and the main difference between getting liquidated on a leverage position versus just holding an asset that goes down. One is a real loss. The other one, you are less rich on the books, you know. And you know, as we have seen before in crypto, most likely, you know, it will go up again. Whereas if you have been liquidated, there is money lost, and you know, don't do it, and especially don't do it over leveraged, because the market is always right, and you know, not the greed or not anything else. So I was actually thinking yesterday, damn, like, is this like not the end of DeFi, but will this be really like set us back in the sense that that people scare out, that people drop everything? And I was looking at these numbers and saying, look, I mean, look at this. It went down a lot. This is the total value locked on Ethereum protocols. What you see here, a screenshot of DeFi Pulse, one, you know, with a great site to get good info on what is hot and what projects have what total value locked in them. Total value locked, for all of those who don't know, is basically the money that people locked into smart contracts of certain protocols or projects, and it is an indicator of how much money is kind of right now in the system. So what you see here, you know, it's bad, it went down, but the good news is we are just back to beginning of May. And I mean, if you look back here to March, we were, you know, at 40 billion. So still we are really on a good track. The same goes for Binance Smart Chain, which massively exploded this year. Basically, if you look back here in February, we were, you know, like basically under $10 billion. We went up here to 50, around 50, and now we're back at 30, which is again somewhat end of April, the stats of end of April. So, you know, life goes on, markets are bad, markets will be better. And the question is, are you investing in good protocols or in bad protocols, and in good ideas or in bad ideas? And, you know, since we are in crypto, there's a lot of hype, there's many projects, and like in the non-crypto market, like in every business situation, you know, there are good businesses and bad businesses. And obviously it's wise to invest in business models, invest in teams, invest in people who can pull it off, and really do your own research, follow up, and really, you know, go into the project, read about it, and not just buy. So I guess that's what's happening. And, you know, you could call it a cleansing rain, what has happened. And I guess now people will look twice, or at least I hope that people will look twice. And I guess for some days, maybe weeks, this will be true, but let's see. But, you know, the real story behind all this DeFi stuff is it's taking off because it makes sense, because suddenly we can do stuff that we could not do before. And that stuff is all around finance, is everything with money, everything that we needed, a government, a bank, a regulator, a middleman, and completely antiquated payment protocol in the background. You know, if you look into what is happening in the background, how payments are made, how many people are there, even let's say you buy a simple stock on Robinhood, there is a clearinghouse involved, there is, you know, so many compliance departments involved, there's a lot of manual process because stuff is not automated. Now DeFi comes along and we call it the money Legos. You know, this is exactly what you see. There's different building blocks, and these different building blocks in essence are what you know from the financial system. It's all stuff that we know, but now you can do it way more efficient, completely automated, in a completely decentralized, non-custodial way, if you want. You know, there's asset management products, there's insurance stuff coming up, obviously a lot of money flowing in, automated lending, decentralized exchanges like Uniswap and PancakeSwap have taken off. And you can see there is usage, it's real, it's not just a dream. It's really projects that are doing stuff, you know. And even if you look a bit into the broader ecosystem, there's, you know, lot of stuff that is connected, such as here we see the compliance, identity, the infrastructure, all the different marketplaces around DeFi. So there's a lot of stuff coming up. And again, it's really about looking into projects, teams, ideas, and last but not least, business models and token economics. And also this is something hard to understand. And I have spent a lot of time, looking into smart contracts or into the money flows of these different protocols. And just to give you one example, I mean, what is the business model of a bank that gives you a loan? The business model is that they can make money out of your loan, as simple as that. But if you do that in a way that you give basically the interest rate back to the lenders, you can do a lot of things. You can just, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but the simplest thing is that you have something like an exchange or like a lending. Somebody pays a fee and you redistribute the fee to everybody who's providing the money, or basically who's taking the risk, right? So it's as simple as that. And here is your business model. And this is basically at the end of the day what makes a good project versus a bad project. And I mentioned the stock market before. You can say that it's actually funny that it has taken so long, that crypto invented synthetic assets. And now, I mean, it's so obvious that you can create a crypto version of an Amazon stock or an Apple or a Tesla stock. And now somebody's doing it. In this case, it's Mirror Finance. So there's a million use cases that totally make sense. And this is why basically I'm already finished at this point to tell you guys, be relaxed, look forward, invest and invest in the future after you do your research. And the good thing is we have millions of use cases. There is many projects that have real business models behind it. And if you look at the numbers of Ethereum and Binance Smart Chain are the examples I showed you here, but now Matic is coming up. There's a lot of other blockchain projects coming up with real usage. And you can see that at the numbers, it's blockchain. It cannot lie to you. If you look at it, I can only suggest learn it. And last but not least, this is probably another massive thing. I have never seen an industry that has such a high demand for people who are willing to get in. And I've talked to many people who are really scared. Oh, I don't know blockchain. I don't know how to start. It doesn't matter. We all don't know. DeFi is so new. You will not find a DeFi expert with 3 years of working experience, right? Trust me, I have tried. And what you have to do is people who care, people who want to look into it, and people who are willing to learn. What you see here is for Dash. On the one side, we are looking for a lot of developers with Dash core group. On the other side, we have with Dash built another super cool thing, which is a completely decentralized organization within the decentralized Dash organization. And that is called the Dash Incubator. And everybody can put ideas and projects here on Dash Incubator and say, I have this idea. This is my concept. These are the production tasks. This is the money I want. And then you get approved and you can kind of, easily in a completely new and decentralized way, get a new job. You can do this completely remotely. It's a really new kind of working. It's not that you write an application to an HR department. It's really kind of next level working environments. And I can only recommend you all to look into that, because, once you kind of wrap your head around it, first it looks like a weird Trello board. Okay, I gotta be honest. But the moment you kind of understand what's actually happening there, and if you look at it, there's probably 20 to 100 people who are employed by this Trello board. It's just a mind-blowing thing. And that probably comes back to the DeFi space and to new monetization strategies also in the context of COVID and in the context of many people lost jobs. If you see all that positive, this is a massively growing industry that creates chances for creative people, for developers, for business people, for everybody who really cares. Get into it, learn. And as we are digital cash with Dash, I can obviously only recommend you, when the market is like that, take your cryptocurrency, get some Dash, go out and buy a cheeseburger, or treat yourself with something nice. Because, at the end of the day, what's better than having crypto on an exchange and feel rich? It's spending it with your friends and doing something you enjoy. So that's it from me. Love Dash. Have a good evening.
Absolutely. I know you guys kept me towards the end here because I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. And, Felix, we're hearing that Dash incubator thing. Maybe that could be an NFT. You put all the different procedures, for someone's proposal for an incubator into an NFT. As an investor, just giving me something, I guess, to throw money at. So that would be interesting. So Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, BitAngels, Malcolm, and KingSwap, really, for having me. And one thing, we've kind of talked about today, and I want to encourage people at the beginning, is to continue to build. Bull or bear, continue to build, because like all the panelists have talked about, we're really at the infancy stages here when it comes to cryptocurrency, DeFi, and NFTs. And there's always going to be better ways to move forward. One thing that was mentioned is, initially everyone thought, okay, let's tokenize properties. Then we saw, okay, that's not liquid. Let's tokenize NFTs. Well, that might be a security. So there's always going to be ways to improve on what our first thought is. Even Uniswap has come out with 3 versions of themselves. So there's always ways to continue to build and to improve. So little about myself is, so I come from the Midwest, very blue collar background. And that kind of led me to this thought of mass adoption, because people in my area don't necessarily have the knowledge or desire to get into cryptocurrency. It kind of always felt like monopoly money to them. But these are the people who could really benefit the most, the people who aren't receiving huge Silicon Valley paychecks or Singaporean paychecks, but they're, able to see their money not decrease due to inflation. They're able to have a little bit of a hedge, but not everyone has that ability. So that's really my life's mission, is to, I consider myself a lone wolf VC, because, I have been able to work with over 15 companies, raised over 600 million. I have $21 billion worth of market cap experience under my belt. One of my most recent investments is now up over 200x just since September. So how do I translate that then to the people, and how do we translate that as an industry, as creators, as investors? How do we translate that to protecting people who come in and invest? Because we're talking here about NFTs. Yeah, it's great, and everyone could become a millionaire buying one, but that's not necessarily true. I have friends who bought and spent all that money on the NBA Top Shots. So now they can't sell them. My buddy's unable to sell them forward. So some of these risks that come with NFTs is, how do we make it so people don't lose? It's not, sure, everyone wants to be a millionaire, but when people are with smaller budgets trying to get into DeFi, trying to get into crypto, what we need for mass adoption, what we need for more wallets, is we can't have these people, spending their money, losing it all, and then not having a home to live in, or not having food to put on the table for their children. We have to be able to create these systems and these protocols that aren't controlled by a centralized entity, like, where a SafeMoon developer can be stealing money every time you do a transaction, and all under the guise of being very kind. So we have to really take that conscious effort, I think, as investors ourselves. And as Daniel mentioned, NFTs have to have a buyer. So if you have no one buying your NFT, you essentially have lost. And as we see more NFTs flood into this market, liquidity is going to be that issue. We're seeing, okay, the famous people are able to sell NFTs, but how about those people who don't necessarily have artist experience? We heard about the kid in India who potentially can sell his art for $100. Who's going to buy that art? As an investor, you have to somehow speculate that art is going to make you money in the future, or at least is going to hold its $100 value. Now, there's a couple issues with that in cryptocurrency that we don't have to necessarily dig into. Like, if you list something for 3 Ethereum, and let's say the price of Ethereum goes down, you're sleeping, you may have just sold that NFT for a big time discount, and you weren't even paying attention. Because the price of Ethereum went down, and boom, you just lost a bunch of money. You could have ended up receiving less than what you actually paid for it. So that's, obviously issue number 1. And then, issue number 2 is, how do we empower these, grassroots people like India, these people who don't have the money to be creators, to harness their creative ability. So it's not just Kanye West putting it out there. It's not just Madonna putting her albums out there. It's people like, our friends. It's people who we support. It's people who you might go hear at your local pub and bar on the weekend singing you a song that you like. How do we empower those people to not only be creators, but also be able to gain investors who aren't thinking that, okay, this is just throwing money out the window, but this is actually a sound, solid investment. Now, when we get to that point, it's going to be extremely strong for everybody, because mass adoption, as we've seen, we've all kind of been through these ups and downs of crypto. When people lose the farm, they're hesitant to get back in. So when you lose lose the farm, it's like an American saying, but when you lose all your money, you're less likely to, you're going to be more hesitant when you try to get back in. So we need to help these people essentially not lose money. So I've invested in absolutely a couple platforms who take the focus of, we call it price support and downside protection. So by me putting money into these companies, what they're trying to build is a way for people to invest. Well, I guess they have built it, but they're going through the patent pending process now. But it's a way to protect the investment dollars that go in while still allowing the person to try to sell the NFT forward. So that way, both the creator and the investor can be protected. And we can create this truly cohesive ecosystem that would empower people to basically use NFTs almost like a staking program, because we're all long-term holders. Like, it's going to take a lot for people to pry ether from my hands. I know Felix was saying spend your crypto, but it's going to be hard for me to send my Dash, buddy. I don't really want to spend it. So at the same time, I do like when my money makes me more money. So setting up a scenario where you can use your crypto and leverage it to potentially buy an NFT that'll make you a return, that's great. But how do I protect my crypto? How do I protect my Dash? How do I protect my Ethereum? So that's something that really is a problem that I've invested heavily in to try to fix, because we've seen too with these NFT sellers is they'll buy their own NFT. With Bitcoin, we have 10 years worth of market data we could look at. We could see floors, we could see price support, we can see different trends and stuff like this. But when it comes to NFTs in the marketplace, we have artists buying their own art and inflating the price. It's kind of a pump and dump. Now you're going to get stuck with a piece of art that may be overly inflated by 10x. We can't have that. We can't have people being hurt like that. So we definitely want to protect people as much as possible. And then price support. So I was talking about the investment that is over 200x now. So that's great and everything, right? But when people hear 200x, they think, okay, I've missed it. People always say all the time, oh, I missed Bitcoin, I missed this other thing. That's why we have people investing in stupid tokens like Doge. I mean, sorry if you're a Doge investor, but it's a useless token. And people are doing it because, they think that, oh, it can 10x or whatever. Well, look, guys, newsflash, if it's at 50 cents, for it to 10x, the market cap is going to be absolutely mind-boggling, and the chances of that happening are very slim. So you have to have price support, like almost like a floor, because we're seeing now that when people are investing at these highs, it's dropping real low and it's hurting people, because now we're having people who are putting their mortgages in. We have people who are putting their paychecks in, and it's not just us, early to the game people who can are more used and apt to that risk, who are able to do the research. Now you have people on Twitter shilling stuff that they're fake people, just shilling something so they could dump their bag on them. And these new people don't know that. So we definitely have to support them as much as possible. So look for protocols, and I invest heavily in protocols that will provide almost like a price support for the project. And I think that that's scalable to many, many industries as well. So kind of want to just leave everyone here too with this idea. So we always talk about DeFi and we saw a total locked value. When we look at scalability, I'm sorry, everybody, but the future isn't going to be AMMs, right? Can you imagine your grandma, your neighbor down the road putting their life savings into a Uniswap contract for them to be able to provide liquidity? It's going to be very unlikely. And that is the type of activity that would be needed for trillions of dollars to move across Uniswap. And that's what mass adoption is. It's trillions of dollars. It's not what we're seeing now. It's, like Felix, I'm bullish on the future. There's going to be so many people in DeFi wanting to play around in DeFi, but we have to do it the right way, because price slippage will kill people. And people don't understand truly about price slippage. So imagine going to buy bread, and every time you're going to buy bread, you're losing 0.3% fee. And on top of that, you're getting price slippage every time you're going to buy bread. No one will accept crypto in the first place then. So we need to make this as easy as possible for people and with the least amount of risk possible. I mean, think about 1 inch. Everyone, I do like 1 inch. I use 1 inch, but when you kind of look at the numbers, you'd have to be a mathematician because it's not really clear even what they show you. So to the lay person, that could cause a lot of loss. That could cause a lot of hurt. So sure, we want everyone to be millionaires, but as builders and as we continue to move to this decentralized future, we really have to focus on protecting people too, not just making everybody a millionaire, because that'll come if we protect them. So that'll be my time. Thank you guys for letting me be passionate and rant here for 10 minutes.